And my name is Dan Pan, and I'm the founder of Hattie.com, and I also wear a few different hats. So I will give a few minutes, very quick introduction to let you guys who I am. Okay, so so this is my LinkedIn. I'm the founder of Hattie.com, and I'm also this is a collaborative education platform. We work with very experienced teachers around the globe, and Ms. Pont is one of our very experienced teachers and is today's guest speaker. She will share about the tips and the strategies of how to get off the wait list. Okay, so and she will get into the details of today's topic. And my another hat is confusing. I'm also the co-founder for Nextstream Technical Institute, and we have a few of us from Qualcomm, used to work at Qualcomm for many years, and we started this company. I'm still the co-founder there, and this is Mr. Mauro of CCA. He's a very senior teacher for computer science and EE at CCA in San Diego, okay? #1 public school in California, okay? And I'm also the chief growth officer of Allo7. You can put Google allo7.com. Just Allo7 is everywhere. It's a very well-known business to business company in China. And I work with them and hire and manage global tutors for Allo7. We have thousands of global teachers and tutors working with us, and we work with top companies and schools like Xin Dongfang and Anli and Huashi Dafuzong, many of them in China, okay? And even though the company, I just want to be making sure, even though the company of Hattie.com is extremely new, teachers like Ms. Pont and Ms. Lexington are all our very experienced teachers, and we've been working together for quite a few years now, okay? So, and before we get into topic, a lot of folks are planning for summer camp. So here's a summer camp for North America, US and Canada. We have a different section on the website for Asia, okay? And also we have summer camp for computer engineering and machine learning from Nextstream, okay? And we have one more event, which is very important, is for our students to be involved with social causes. Actually, the prompt was written, provided by Ms. Pont here. And one is more contemporary issues for discrimination against Asian Americans, and one's more historical. So your student can choose one of the prompts and submit just by reply here, and nobody else will see it, okay? Only us will see it. And we have a panel of very experienced teachers, and we'll pick a few of them very good, and we'll provide a speech contest at the end of April. And then the winners, 2 winners, will be winning the scholarship to one of the programs at Hattie.com, okay? And then we have one more event. Just want to share with you, kids, delve into today's topic. I'm very proud and very thankful that my younger son, who is a senior at CCA, just got accepted by UC Berkeley, okay? He also received acceptance at USC yesterday with merit scholarship. So, and also University of Michigan. So I'm very thankful for Ms. Pont's help and service, her experiences, okay? So this weekend, Saturday, we have a lot of, so I'm leading actually a group of Berkeley parents of class of 2025, even though some of them have not decided. All the parents in my group, 270 or so, the students all accepted by Berkeley, and many of them have questions about Berkeley. So I invited 5 Berkeley graduates, alumni, enrolled students to talk about Berkeley, talk about different programs, talk about safety at Berkeley, talk about housing. So hopefully all of you will be joining us. This event will be mainly to answer questions from the new students, and we have a survey that take their student or take your questions as well, but priority will be given to them. But all the guests, all the students' parents are invited to attend a Zoom open house this Saturday at 5 p.m. Okay, with that said, I took 5 minutes of the time. I will give the screen share to Ms. Pont. Ms. Pont is our experienced writing teacher. She's teaching writing, math reading and writing for both Asia and US. Ms. Pont is also an experienced college counselor, and she has been providing college counseling services, professional services for almost decades, right? And this is her profile. So if folks want to check out her background, it's all written, it's all provided on our website, the schools that her students got into it, and most importantly, what services that Ms. Pont provides along with Hattie.com here, okay? And we also put quite a few testimonies, okay? This whole website, just want to let you guys know, will be re-engineered in a few months. We have a team at Hattie. You know, all this cannot be done without a whole team. So we have a team of very excellent teachers, and that's number one. So we have a lot of teachers in our database working with LO7. We have thousands of them, above 100,000 teachers in our database, okay? And we only work with very experienced teachers who have grade 5 to grade 12 experience working with us on Hattie, okay? And we also have interns. We work with a lot of interns. And we also have a team of engineers. At this current website, it's actually 100% done by our intern who actually shared with us a few weeks ago regarding their experience at Hattie, okay? And we also work with different companies for internships, okay? So here we go. I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna make Ms. Pont the host, make host and change host. Here you go.
All right, thank you, thank you. Did you want me to go full screen, Dan?
Yes, yes. If you have something to share.
I don't have anything specific to share. I don't have anything visual. I will say this. I see. My name is Sally Pont, and it is true. I have been a college counselor for decades. I started out as a classroom English teacher, and I taught juniors in American literature, and their senior year they started coming to me to show me their college essays, and I was helping them with their college essays. And the college counselor at the school at which I was teaching began to notice that there was a significant improvement in the quality of the student essays, and so she decided to pull me under her wing and to teach me all the ways of college counseling. And as a result, I have been on hundreds of college campuses. I have met with hundreds of college representatives, and I've learned the ins and outs of the college application game over the past few decades, and watched it as it has evolved into the thing that it has become. And I assume you are all on this call because it looks like there's mostly parents, because your children have been waitlisted this year. And that is a circumstance that has evolved along with the college admission process to become a very particular thing. Let me assure everyone on this call something that you must embrace and that your children must embrace, and that is this: a waitlist notification is not by any stretch of the imagination a no. It's not a no. It is a maybe. It's a maybe contingent on a variety of things, and it's those things that I'm going to talk about in this call. But let me assure you of some statistics of what I can share with you from last year and from some previous years of how I'm quite certain that the waitlist status is not by any stretch of the imagination a no. First, I'm going to offer you some numbers, then I'm going to offer you a set of anecdotes based on my experience with the students that I worked with last year, 2020, which was a year in which schools dipped deeply into their waitlist. So just let me offer you some statistics about the waitlist last year. So last year, Purdue University offered waitlist status to 5,755 students. 3,378 students clicked the accept button, and then 1,542 students were admitted to Purdue University from the wait list. So that is over half of the students who at first accepted that waitlist status. So think about that as a statistical average. Pretty good numbers. Penn State University offered waitlist status to 4,151 students. 2,911 clicked the yes button, and then 1,169 were accepted from the waitlist. Penn State University. Fascinating. Now, you might think large state school, of course, they're just playing their numbers, but let me offer you a different example. Last year, Pepperdine offered waitlist status to 1,088 students. 629 clicked the accept button, and 328 students were admitted to Pepperdine. Now, again, you could say that those are schools that are of a certain acceptance rate. These are not the most prestigious schools. Nevertheless, I assure you that last year, even the most prestigious schools were dipping deep into their wait list. And this is where I'm going to transition into a few anecdotes. I will say this, I don't have an anecdote about Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt is the school that really has set the bar high for utilizing the wait list to manage their enrollment. So if your child has been waitlisted at Vanderbilt, your child stands a very good chance of getting in, as long as you and your children follow very specific steps. But Vanderbilt did not offer their numbers from last year of how many they offered waitlist status to. But Vanderbilt, this 9% acceptance rate school, accepted 453 students from their waitlist last year. That's a staggering number. Now, you would think that the top schools never need to dip in their waitlist, and typically they don't. And last year, Harvard, they would not admit anyone from the waitlist, even though it was becoming clear that they were going to be under-enrolled, and they are under-enrolled in this school year. That was their decision. They knew they were going to be closed as a result of COVID, and so they accepted no one from the waitlist. However, Stanford offered waitlist status to 750 students. 580 clicked the yes button, and 8 were admitted. Now, that might seem like a low number, but the reality is that 8 is pretty good. And I worked with one of those lucky 8 students. So I'm going to tell you her story, and I'm going to tell you how I think she got in, because it's a wee bit opaque, but also I think it's a story that we should all take to heart. So this young woman, really bright, really talented young woman who she had wanted to go to the University of Chicago. She lives just outside of Chicago. Her family's there, and she had applied early action to Chicago, was deferred, wanted to stay close to her family, so was hoping to get into Chicago or Northwestern, was denied at both of those schools, but was waitlisted at Stanford. She was admitted to and was planning to matriculate to the University of Illinois when she crafted a letter of continued interest to Stanford. And in it, she chronicled all that she had done. Now, by this point in her high school career last year, the world had shut down. She was home. Her education, her extracurricular activities had all ground to a complete halt. And she poured her heart and soul into a letter of continued interest. And in it, she chronicled her activities and all the things that she had done since she had submitted her application in January. She was editor of the school newspaper. She was captain of her quiz bowl team. And she was an active member of the Indian student organization at her school. Those were her big activities. But what she did in this letter was so compelling. She made every one of those activities sound as if they were the most important things in the world. And that sound was palpable. She really sucked the life out of every one of them. And lo and behold, in about early June, she got an email from Stanford University that she was admitted from their wait list. She was bright. She was talented. She was not a competition winner. She was not a junior Olympic gold medalist. She was just a very bright girl who said the right things in the right tone in her letter of continued interest. And that's what makes it happen. So let me share a few other stories. So that was the young woman who got in from the waitlist at Stanford University. In addition, I worked with a young man who was last year who was waitlisted at Brown. Again, bright, talented, very science-minded, terrific athlete. But again, I mean, not winning national, international competitions, not an award-winning athlete, just a good, solid student and a good, solid guy. And he was waitlisted at Brown. Well, he was right on top of the exercise, and he diligently wrote a letter of continued interest, which highlighted a lot of his scientific explorations that he did in a local lab with a local researcher. And I had worked with him for a couple of years, and so I knew him quite well. I wrote a follow-up letter of recommendation for him, and in the space of 5 days in April, he submitted his letter, I submitted my letter, and he was admitted. That was in April. So think about that. Tomorrow is April 1st. Ivy Day, of course, is next week. And then the waitlist wheels are going to start to turn. If that young man can get into Brown in April of last year, I assure you the wheels will be turning in April of this year. Let me share with you a couple more anecdotes. Another young man I worked with last year was waitlisted at the University of Pennsylvania. He, again, very, very high standardized test scores, very good academics, lots of activities, but he could not make that budge. And all the kids are on all their Reddit sites, and so he knew about the waves of people being admitted from the waitlist last year. And so I said, well, write him another letter. Write Penn another letter. And he did. And he was just the kind of kid who was always doing something. So he was able to chronicle more recent activities because that's how he rolled. And he was admitted to the University of Pennsylvania. And that was about mid to late May. And then finally, let me share this story because I think that this is the most telling story. A young woman I worked with last year was waitlisted at 3 different schools. She was waitlisted at the University of Michigan, like a million other people that last year and this. She was waitlisted at NYU, and she was waitlisted at Boston University. And so she clicked the yes button on all those schools. Now, by May 1st, she put her deposit down at Smith College because that was the best match for her based on where she had been admitted. And then in the first week of May, she was admitted to Boston University. In the second week of May, she was admitted to NYU. She decided to matriculate to NYU. She withdrew her application from Michigan. She said, bye-bye, Smith. She's at NYU right now, or remotely NYU right now. So those are just some anecdotal examples, and to follow up on the numeric examples, that a wait list is not a no. The key thing is to just do the right follow-up with the right tone. And the primary thing, of course, is the student's letter of continued interest that I believe, now, if your child is waitlisted right now, I think the sooner it gets in, the better, because waitlist letters are going to start flooding in as people start making decisions in early to mid-April. So I think that your children should write something sooner rather than later so it gets seen quickly. And that letter should be effusive. It should be detailed. Don't hold back. The young woman who got into Stanford, I just looked at her letter, reread it, did a word count. It was over 1,000 words. She described every activity in her life to the nth degree, to the most minute detail, and with tremendous passion. In addition, if you can follow up your children's letter of continued interest with one well-chosen letter of recommendation, no more. Don't bombard, and don't look for famous people necessarily. Someone who knows your child, someone who can really speak to their strengths, that is always something that's going to be beneficial. And here's why. Here's why. Because largely what these schools really want, what NYU and BU and even and especially Penn and Brown, what they needed to know last year and will need to know this year is that these students will matriculate there. That's one of the main reasons why schools waitlist, is because they are not sure that these students will matriculate to the school. So, you know, if you, for example, if your child, if their scores and grades are significantly higher than the average admit, and your child was waitlisted, the school is simply sending you a message saying, we're not sure your child is going to come here. So it is up to you to send a letter that says, yes, I will. Yes, I want to attend your college. Be assured of that. And if the letter is clear, if the follow-up letter of recommendation is clear, then that admission will surely follow. But it is remarkable how many students I worked with who were waitlisted last year had the most amazing happy endings at all these various stages of the process. You know, and early too, to think about, you know, Brown dipping into their wait list in April. That is staggering. I do think that last year's panic was normalized. And this year I'm seeing so many wait lists. And so therefore I firmly believe that the schools are utilizing this as a mechanism to control their admission flow, and that your children are going to get in from the wait list if they write the best letter they can. So that is my message to you. And those are all my major stories. Now, so I thought I would leave a lot of time for questions, because I am sure that every individual question will apply to everyone else. So I would be delighted to take questions from the floor.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Pont. Very well
Absolutely.
spoken. Yeah, I want to share very, very minor anecdote myself. Actually, when I was applying for graduate school from China, I was waitlist for scholarships at University of Michigan and also at Cornell. And because I could not come without a scholarship. So to me, it's the same as acceptance. I chased after them with a lot of passion, persistence, and I got both at the end. So that was my personal story. I tell every single one of the, you know, students and the parents I meet, that if you really want to go after it, chase after it with your passion and be persistent. Mm-hmm. Don't be fearful of failure. Mm-hmm. What can you get? It's just no, right? There's nothing. But if you don't chase after it, for sure it's a no, right? So anyway, okay, we'll open up the question for the floor. You can type in the chat room, or you can just speak out.
Yeah. So I have two questions already. So I will read them out and then I will answer them. The question is this: is it better to send a letter of continued interest to the general admissions office address, or should I find the name of the regional contact for that university? Great question. You know, it's a nice personal touch to be able to find the regional contact. And I know with the students that I work with, I actually will often call the regional contact if I am able to see if I can facilitate a follow-up. That being said, even if the regional person gets it, the letter is just going to wind up in your file, and then it will get taken to committee to be reevaluated. So wherever it goes, whether it's the general email or a specific person's email, it will all wind up in the same place. So don't stress if you can't find a person to send it to. Just send it wherever you send it. I assure you, it will end up in your file. Okay, and this will dovetail with the next question. If a school doesn't accept extra materials and letters, what should we do? I send it anyway, Eric. Send it anyway. I mean, my feeling is that, you know, you can't do nothing. You have to do something. So send a letter. If you send a letter, I assure you they will add it to your file. It will just happen, and they will utilize it in the process. Now, I think that they keep their game face on and they say, don't send extra materials because they don't want people to be sending fruit baskets and $100 bills. You know, they want to keep that kind of traffic to a minimum. However, a well-phrased letter, for sure, they will add to your file. Okay, next question. Some schools this year have explicitly asked us not to send any additional materials, and they listed letters of recommendation as one of the things they didn't want, and I used one of them. Would I therefore refrain from anything other than a letter of continued interest? Good question. I would say if they specifically say don't send a letter of recommendation, then you just make your letter of continued interest extra long. Okay, so yes, good point. But I mean, always send a letter of continued interest to every school. And so the next question, what should the recommendation include? Well, you know, it depends on who the recommendation is from, but all recommendations that I write highlight the student's character, the student's academic performance, and the student's potential. So all those qualities, and I always make sure that all of my letters of recommendation are as specific as possible. So it is imperative that the person who writes the letter of recommendation knows your child. I'm going to read the next question. Shall we wait for all the results are out before sending the letter of continued interest? That's a great question. I have been encouraging students to send out their letters of continued interest sooner rather than later, and here's why. I do think on Ivy Day, you know, after all that fallout happens, the letters of continued interest at other schools are just going to fly out. So I've encouraged students to beat that rush. So for example, let's see, who notified? You know, Williams College notified last week, and you know, waitlisted people. So those are exactly the kind of students who are going to also be applying to Ivy League schools. So this student that I work with, who was waitlisted at Williams College, I encouraged him to get his letter in right away so that he would beat the rush of those other students who might not get into Yale, Harvard, or Princeton, but are waitlisted at Williams and will want to get that letter in. Beat that rush. So that's how I feel. Now, schools say that they don't evaluate the wait list until May, but I have hard evidence that that is not true based on the admission of students that I've worked with in the past. So I think that they are already, you know, doing that sort as early as they can, because they want to lock their numbers in place just as much as kids want to lock their futures in place. So next question. There's so many that let me scroll back up. Let's see. Should the letters be customized to every school? That's a good question. Here's what I say to that. 90% of it can be the same from school to school because it's all about you and it's all about what you've done. But 10% of it should be geared toward that school and what draws you to that school, what makes that connection palpable. So customized, but don't reinvent the wheel for every single school. Okay, and then let's see. There was a question just before that I missed. Okay, what should you put in the letter of continuing interest? All right, so let me be clear about what you should put in these letters. They should be largely factual. I mean, almost list-like. Since I sent my application in, I've accomplished this, I did this, here's my academics, here's my extracurriculars, here's what I've done in regards to things that have happened in current circumstances. Here's how my family has responded to COVID-19. All those very factual items can be in this letter. However, they should be communicated with a real feeling of fervor, and a demonstration of a love of learning. I do think that that's all any school really wants in the students from that they're hoping to accept is a deep love of learning and a love of learning everything. So that should come across in the letters. And then, of course, there should be some clear sense that that the writer of the letter is very conscious of why they're choosing this school, why they still want to go to this school, and why it's a perfect match. So that's what should be in the letter of continued interest. So question about the University of Michigan, they say they don't want anything. Again, you know, Michigan's tough. They're one of the toughest admissions offices out there. But I do believe that if, you know, sending a letter to the general admissions email will get in your folder. And then in tandem with that is the question, some schools like Carnegie Mellon have a form to send them updates if we want to apply for waitlist. Should I still send an email to Carnegie Mellon, or should I wait for the form to open, or both? I say both. Here's why. That form will probably allow, you know, X number of words, 250 words at the most, maybe 500 if we're lucky. I don't think you should hold back. So I say send a letter that's longer, send a letter that's organic and robust, and then when it opens up, you can trim it down to 250 words or whatever the limitations are, and send it also through that portal. Now, if I haven't said enough about what the letter of interest should include, I'll come back to that. Oh, question. Any experience with Northwestern waiting list? I got to tell you, no. You know, I'm blanking on that one. I don't have any experience, so I don't know how deeply they go. I could look up those numbers. You know, most schools do publish their numbers. Some schools are pretty cagey. But I can find out those numbers. That's the best I can get to, but I've never worked with a student who was waitlisted at Northwestern, so I don't know how that experience should go down. Okay, next question. Should we send email or real USPS mail? No one reads real mail anymore. No one. In fact, MIT, if you try to send them a paper anything, I mean, they're sort of incredulous. It actually goes through a clearinghouse in Pennsylvania. So they expect everything electronic. Then if we were to send both an email and fill out the form, should the form just be a shortened version of the email, or should it be unique? Excellent question. If, you know, Eric, the more ways you can show off how smart you are and how well you write and how thoughtful you are, the better. That's always my feeling. So if you can write something extra, new, and gripping and spectacular, in addition to the initial letter, for whatever the box is that Carnegie Mellon or whatever school supplies, more power to you. The more they will appreciate you. So if you can write something unique, great. If you can't, that's okay too. Okay, so let's see. Is it appropriate for the student's paid private admissions consultant to write the letter of rec? You know, I have never found it to be inappropriate. You know, the reality is that I get to know the students really, really well. And in my experience, college admissions offices really are appreciative of my insight into the students. So I don't believe it is inappropriate, or it crosses any lines. It's not I think the world of my students. I can follow up on why I believe that with longer anecdotes, but really, you know, just as an example, reaching out to I reached out to Wake Forest on behalf of a waitlisted student yesterday. They were perfectly happy to take my call and talk about that particular student. So it was it was a positive exchange on both ends. Let's see. So should the recommender be a teacher or of an academic subject, or are coaches and other mentors okay as long as they know me well? Absolutely. So here's what I always say for any follow-up letter of recommendation. You always ask yourself, what dots need to be connected? What story has not been told? So for example, if your English and history teachers wrote your letter of recommendation, maybe you do need a math teacher or a science teacher. Or if you know that all those academic pieces were just perfectly covered, but you and people think that you're only affiliated with academics and you want to expose another side of yourself, then by all means ask a coach. Ask whoever you think is going to complete the picture. What's the missing piece? What dots are not connected? So mentors and coaches are perfectly fine and perhaps better in this stage of the game. When addressing the letter of continued interest, do I address it to the admissions office overall, or do I pick a specific admissions officer? Again, it's really nice if you can address it to a person. It does personalize it, but that being said, it's all going to wind up in the same place and dealt with in the same fashion, whether it's addressed to one person or just the admissions office. So don't worry about that. If I already sent an update letter, yes, in early February, would it seem repetitive? That's the issue, isn't it? I know. And try to avoid overlapping topics. Yes. Do try. I realize that probably not a lot has transpired between late February and now, or early February and now, and that might have been a letter for Michigan. But the reality is that, you have to dig deep and you have to think, what have I done? And what have I accomplished? And what have I learned? If you can't think of, tangible things to report, what have you learned in your classes? What's been exciting to you? What transformations have taken place as a result of whatever it is going on in your classrooms or your schools or your lives? Is it okay to send in a sibling's recommendation letter? Wow. That's a great question. So there are just a handful of schools, Dartmouth, Davidson, and Pitzer that accept peer recommendations. And they often are some of the best recommendations going, and sometimes very hard on people too. But generally they're spectacular and they're very, very telling, and they really are incredibly helpful for the admissions offices because they give the inside scoop. So would a siblings letter be okay? It's a whole new wrinkle. I think it would stop an admissions office in their tracks if once they put two and two together. I think it could work. It's a really creative idea. And everything, it's, in this waitlist scenario is a bit of a Wild West. I mean, the rules do not apply necessarily. So if in fact your sibling is the one who knows you best, then perhaps it's the appropriate thing to do. Okay, should we have our letter of recommendation attached to the statement of continued interest email, or have them send it directly? I absolutely have them send it directly. Absolutely. It is imperative in this process that letters of recommendation be confidential, that they be between the recommender and the school. So if you do ask someone to write an extra letter, then have them send it directly to the admissions office. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, I got lots of questions about specific schools. So, okay, and that's right. This is one I skipped over. So, UCLA and UC schools. So yeah, UCLA, I think has a pretty long waiting list this year, is my sense of the world. So I do think that this year, I mean, you have to understand something. The UC schools, I mean, I feel for them. The fact that they had to do all of their judgments test blind. I don't know how they did it. And I'm sure they are squirming right now and terrified because they do not know how the chips are going to fall. I think that the schools are going to, the UC schools, there's going to be, who knows how deeply they'll go into their waitlist, but I think that it could happen this year more than ever. UCLA has always gone to their waitlist to some extent, but I think this year it could be very deep because I don't think that they have a clear sense of who they've admitted, because there was a piece of the puzzle missing this year that they're used to having. So that's just my opinion. So we'll see how it goes down. We'll see. Let's see, more questions.
Well, coming.
Okay.
There's one more here. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Is having 2 letters of recommendation, one from a teacher, one from a coach, too much, or should we stick to one? I do feel that at this stage of the game, be strategic and be timely. So, if you send in your letters, send in a letter of recommendation. If you hear that people are hearing, and these things do happen in waves. Michigan and Vanderbilt both would send them out in waves last year, waves of about 30. And there were a few sets of waves that came out, and it was highly publicized. But if you are not in that second wave, then what the heck? Send another letter of recommendation. Sure, if someone is willing to write that for you, must mean you're pretty good. So send it. Questions are about Carnegie Mellon's waitlist, Georgetown's waitlist. I have not had personal experience with those schools, so I cannot comment on them. I would think that this year, as I said, just thinking about Carnegie Mellon and Georgetown and their price tags, things can be very volatile in this world right now because of cost, because of the ability to give financial aid. So this will be a good year for private schools because of cost. They'll go to their wait lists.
Okay, they're about UC schools, whether we should include the test scores.
Okay, that's a great question. I actually just deleted that from someone's letter of continued interest. I think it puts them in a difficult spot. They have specifically said we don't want them. And so it's a little sneaky to try to slide it in that way. And it's a little disrespectful of the stance that they've taken. So I wouldn't. You don't want to annoy them. So don't do something. It's not going to gain you points. It's going to potentially lose you points if you get under their skin. So tread lightly with that. I know you had fantastic test scores. Send them to another school.
Okay, that's a great sharing, Ms. Pont. So I think just, from what you just said, I can draw a few conclusions. It's for seniors. It doesn't really stop on January 1st, right? Most people said, okay, I'm done. No, because you really have to do something. And when you're waitlisted, you need to tell schools what additional things, activities, achievement, academic-wise, non-academic, have you done for the past 3 months? I have students coming to me and say, okay, can I work for you next few months? Because I do need something different, right? So that's one thing. You can't just say, okay, I'm senior, just take it easy. It's unfortunate. You need to continue, kind of really working with authenticity, not just like I'm done because school doesn't really care. I'm only doing this for college application. Okay, that's not the way it is, okay? The second I've kind of taken from Ms. Pont's sharing is the writing is extremely important. And you need to write it. Nobody else will write for you. And we can edit. We have Ms. Pont, a lot of professional editors, but you have to write it. So the writing is extremely important, the writing skills, and it's very, very difficult and put a lot of STEM students overall a little bit disadvantage. They can have high achievements, with STEM awards with GPA test scores, but when they can't write well, it's just unfortunate. Yeah. So that's my second takeaway. And the third takeaway is from Ms. Pont sharing, it's about when I wrote the title, persistence. You just have to go after it. You can't quit this point. And you will only get it when you want to get it. Yeah, you can't just quit. So anyway, it's a marathon. I know it's very, very tough to keep very high GPAs throughout the 4 years with all the activities, internships, volunteer services. But we have 4 more weeks, senior students and parents, just to hold on to 4 more weeks. And you never know, things may turn around that you may be able to go to your dream schools. And if you don't even land in your dream schools, I always tell everybody in the US, top 50, top 100 schools are all very, very good schools. By the time you graduate, you will be happy. You won't think about, this Ivy, that top public schools. You will be happy where you end, and you will have a fantastic life ahead of you. So anyway, anything else? Any other questions? Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, good luck to everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Pont. Thank you, everybody. We're ending this meeting right on time. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.